All right, so I figured I'd make a short video, well, short-ish video here about my initial experiences driving the car and owning it. I've had this 2002 Viper ACR for a couple of weeks now, and I've driven it about 100 miles so far. I think it's like 99 miles. Um, so I'll talk a bit about what it's like to drive, and I also want to sort of respond to some of the comments I've gotten from people about their thoughts of me getting the car. So maybe I'll start with that. Um, it's interesting to me that when you buy a sports car, that a lot of people want you to track the car so that you can understand its limits. So like, oh, you should drive this car on a racetrack so you know where the limits are, and so then you could drive it safely on a public road. It's like, okay, well, number one, I'm not going to put this car on a track, at least not in the foreseeable future, because anytime you put a car on a track, it's going to put more stress on the equipment. And then they would say, well, you don't have to drive it that hard on the track. Well, then what's the point of going on the track, dumbass, if you're not going to explore the limits of the car? Anytime you explore the limits of a car, you're putting more stress on the car. So either you go to a track and you beat the hell out of it, or you drive it on the road and you don't beat the hell out of it and you're nowhere near the limits. Make up your mind, okay? So I'm not going to track this car, at least not for now. And, a lot of that is because it's a beautiful car. I don't want to beat it up. I don't want to have to go hunting around for parts if I end up wearing something out prematurely or breaking it, suspension bushings or engine components or whatever. I don't want to deal with that. So, and by the way, you don't need to track a car to understand how to drive a car. Some of you are going to criticize me for what I'm about to say here, but I spent the last almost 30 years playing Gran Turismo and other racing simulators, and I've learned a lot about how to drive a car at or near its grip limits virtually. And I've been able to take those lessons that I've learned and apply them to the real world, whether it's on a go-kart track or in certain cases on the road, where it's actually saved my butt once or twice, if I was on a slippery surface or whatever, and I was beyond the grip limits of the tires. So it's not like I don't know how to drive a car at those limits. So I don't need to do that to this car. So please, for the love of God, stop saying to track the car, right? If I were to track a car, by the way, of this type, let's say front engine, rear wheel drive, high power, manual gearbox, what would I do? Well, maybe a 6th or 7th generation Corvette would be appropriate for that, because they make more Corvettes in 1 year than Chrysler made Vipers throughout the entire production run across all generations. So it's a lot easier to get Corvette parts. The LS engine's pretty reliable. So it's a probably more appropriate car to track if you want something in this theme. If I were to track a Viper, I wouldn't track a 2nd gen Viper. I'd probably do like a 4th gen. Or, if I had stupid money, maybe a 5th gen. But yeah, there's no need to put this on the track. That's dumb. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about driving it. There's the handling, there's the acceleration, and the general sort of seating position. So as far as handling goes, the car drives a lot like a go-kart. And I just want to reiterate that this car is not stock. It does have aftermarket components on it. It has BC coilover shocks. Now, this is a Viper ACR that came with Koni shocks, so I don't know exactly how the BC coilovers compare to the Koni shocks as far as like stiffness and damping. But putting that aside, with what it has on it and with the tires it has on it, it drives like a go-kart. It's kind of stiff. You're going to feel it going over bumps, but the handling is very sharp. Certainly for me, it doesn't give me the feeling like it wants to kill me. A lot of people say that about Vipers. The Viper's actively trying to kill you. Well, it depends. If you have old tires, and because they're so old, they have lower grip, then yeah, the car is probably going to want to kill you. Or maybe if you're driving an RT10, like a 1st gen that doesn't have the hard top, then the chassis is going to be a bit softer, let's say, because you can twist the chassis more as you accelerate. The torque from the engine is going to put a torsional load on the chassis, or as you corner, the chassis is going to flex, and then as that unwinds, that's going to snap the chassis, and the suspension may not respond in time, and so then you have to respond with the steering wheel, and then that's how you can get unsettled and crash into a tree. GTS is a hardtop, so it has more chassis stiffness, so that's going to help you. And again, with the suspension it has, the tires it has, it drives great. I don't have any problems driving the car, on a back road. I don't feel threatened or anything by the car trying to kill me. And this is mind you, the engine and the exhaust on this are upgraded. This has quite a bit more power than a stock Viper ACR. As far as acceleration goes, it's, let's say, instantaneous and violent, and I mean that in the best possible way. As a point of comparison, for whatever it's worth, my Lexus IS 350, that stock from the factory was 306 horsepower. Not a slow car, but it feels pedestrian in comparison to this, because that car is drive-by-wire. So you mash your right foot to the floor, and then there's the delay between when you step on the gas and when the engine responds. And because that's a lower displacement engine, 3.5 liter V6 compared to an 8 liter V10, doesn't have as much torque, and you have to rev the engine out to really build up power on that engine. So until you really feel something, it's going to be a couple seconds. On this though, it's drive-by cable. The throttle pedal connects to a cable that connects to the throttle body and the engine. It's direct. So when you step on the gas, it just goes. And it's really fast. It accelerates so hard that the seatbelt tensioner locks up because you're pulling enough G's that it probably thinks you're about to crash. So that's really pleasant, and it really puts a smile on your face. So that's fun. Yeah, as far as, let's say, just for me personally, I'm kind of relearning driving stick shift. I'm a quick learner, so I'm getting used to it. The challenge with this car is that it doesn't really like driving at low speeds. Again, this has to do with the particular setup of this car. So if you're trying to do 30 miles an hour, 25 to 30 sort of town local, speed limits, you're either in second gear pulling higher revs around 2,500 RPM or so, or you're in third gear at around 1,100 RPM, which is just above the stall speed. And so the engine kind of stutters a bit. If you're in third gear doing 30 miles an hour, it's going to stutter a little bit. And so you got to speed up a bit or press the clutch in to let it coast, so to sort of relax the engine, and then pull the clutch back. But you don't want to do that too much because you don't want to wear out the clutch. So then it's probably better to downshift. But if you downshift, you're pulling higher revs, it's making more noise. So driving at local town speeds is, let's say, the most difficult part. But once you're getting above 40 miles an hour or 40 or above, it's fine. Like, you're in third gear, you're going to spend a lot of time in third gear, and you just drive. On the highway, I've only actually gotten up to fourth gear. I haven't even shifted out of fourth gear because, even in fourth, you can do 65, 70 miles an hour, and you're at under 2,000 RPM. So it's, I haven't even had to use fifth or sixth gear yet. As far as the gear shift itself, I can't remember if I went over this in an earlier video, but I'll just show you here. So, although it is technically an H pattern-like gear shift, it's not exactly a straight H pattern. And what I mean by that, I'm just going to press the clutch down here. So over and up, that's first gear. Second gear, straight back, fine. Third gear, over and up. And sometimes in the second to third transition, it doesn't quite want to help you. Like, you can miss the shift or miss the location for third gear. So sometimes you got to slow down a bit, go back in a second, and then make sure you hit third. Okay. I've only done that maybe twice so far. Usually you can make the shift, but sometimes you miss it. Third to fourth is not straight back. It's kind of back at an angle a little bit. So, that can take some getting used to. You can actually end up missing that shift, and by mistake end up shifting back in a second. That is possible. So you do have to watch out for that. Fifth gear, of course, over and up like this. Sixth gear isn't straight back from fifth. It's actually back and then over and then down like that. So that's kind of funky.
And then reverse is over and up, but I can't do this because I'm holding my cell phone camera with one hand. But you got to kind of take two hands and really crank this thing over and then up to get into reverse. So it's kind of a chunky gear shifter. Takes a bit of getting used to. It takes a bit of muscle to use. It's not like super hard, but it takes a bit of effort. And again, it's not exactly a straight H pattern. So if you're going to do something like really driving it hard and you're trying to downshift fast with heel and toe and trying to get your gear shift points exactly right, shifting really fast, that can be difficult. But if you're just driving casually, it's fine. Usually you're in third gear or fourth gear, and then when you see a traffic light, you just hit the brakes, and then when you get slow enough, you press the clutch in, let the car go to neutral, release the clutch, and then just kind of slow the car down. So yeah, that's kind of what it's like. As far as the pedal arrangement, a lot of people say, and it's technically true, the pedals are shifted to the left. Um, but it's not, for me at least, it's not a problem. I'm 5'11". I'm not a wide person, and the shoes I wear are generally running shoes, which aren't particularly wide. So if you wear, normal or narrower shoes, it's totally fine. You're not going to have any problems. Yes, like right here, this is where my right leg is with my foot over the gas pedal. So it is shifted a little to the left, but I don't feel like my torso is twisting all that much to accommodate this leftward shift in the pedals. It's once you get used to it, it's kind of subconscious. It just feels totally normal. It's not really an issue. Um, yeah, like rear visibility is fine. This is what it looks like looking over the hood. So you can't quite see where the nose of the car is, but you get a good sense of it based on these sort of fender flares here where the corners are, and you kind of get a sense of where the front is, but you can't see it exactly. And in the back, visibility is pretty good. The only blind spots are the rear three-quarter vision right here. Okay, so if you're on the highway and you want to move to the right lane, no problem. You can see out the window there, you can see there, the mirrors are set up correctly, no problem. If you want to get into the left lane, you got to make sure your rear mirror here and the driver's side rear mirror are set up well enough to account for this blind spot. Because you look over the side here, there's no window on the side here. It's just the rear window and then the driver's side window, just like there. But here, from this perspective, I'm far enough away from this window and that window, I can see fine enough here between that and the mirrors. But here you don't have that. So you're relying on whatever you can see here and then whatever you see in the mirrors. So a little bit of a blind spot there. But again, if you set up your mirrors correctly, it's not a problem. Yeah, it does sit low, but getting in and out isn't that bad. Again, I'm not exactly an unfit person, so I don't have problems with it. Let's see. What else do I want to mention about this? So far, yeah, I'd say it's just generally speaking, much more drivable than what the mythology around the Viper would have had me believe. I came into this car thinking it was going to be super intimidating, that I'd really have to walk on eggshells to drive it. And, the first like 3 or 4 miles I put in the car, I did feel that way because it's not stock. It has more power. It's louder than stock as well. So it's initially intimidating. But then once you get used to it, it feels fine. And it's kind of working with you, like, yes, I've stalled the car a couple times, but it doesn't like yell at you for that. You just turn the car back on and you go. So far it's been quite good. So let's see. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say about driving the car. At least my initial impressions, first 100-ish miles or so. Right now it's mid to late August of 2025. I figure I'll drive this for another 2 months. Around mid to late October, I'll fill the tank, put fuel stabilizer in it, park it for the winter. And then after I do that, then I'll have all winter to do like oil change, transmission fluid change, the rear differential fluid change. I would probably do that closer into spring so I don't let the oil age throughout the winter. And, there's some other things here like
power steering pulley and the power steering bracket. I'll put those on. I have a catch can here and some tubing for the power steering cap as sort of like an overflow reservoir. By the way, I check the power steering cap about every other time I drive the car, and it's on there really tight, so I haven't had any problems with that coming loose yet. Yeah, so those are the two main things. I bought another water pump just in case. I want to send this out probably to Havoc and have them rebuild that with an aluminum or an alloy impeller, so I can get that installed on this eventually. And by the way, I spoke with my stepdad, who is a mechanic and has worked on hot rods and trucks and things for many, many years. And he mentioned to me that possibly the reason why the plastic impeller blades on the water pump for this tend to go bad could be if the owners are not replacing the coolant often enough. Because if you leave the coolant in the car for too long, it starts to break down the plastic. And then that's what can cause the plastic impeller blades to sort of crack or slip along the drive shaft. So as long as you keep up with coolant flushing at the appropriate intervals, it should be fine. So just so you guys know, if any of you have water pump with plastic impellers, just keep up with your coolant flushing at the appropriate intervals. Anything else? I have a battery tender hooked up to it. I have noticed that once I take that off and start the car the first time, it's fine. But if you're like doing a lot of door opening and closing to like show people the car so they can get in and sit down, like this is an electric door, right? That's powered by the battery. And it's not hooked up to the battery tender when you're in a parking lot. So if you do too much of that, battery voltage will drop a bit. And then you notice when you start the car, it's got to crank a little longer. So, maybe I'm due for a battery replacement soon. So that's another thing I'll consider over the winter. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. Anyway, that's my 17-minute ramble. Hope you learned a few things. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.